starts at 7:10. Started at 7:10 here for a long time.
What's up, everybody? You're listening to the 10After7 podcast with your host, Michael Cody Stevenson, episode 20. And today we have two great guests for you. First, Kyle Slowey making his fourth appearance on the podcast. You guys know him well. K-Slow, what's up, dude?
Big Mac is back. What's up, boys?
And then we have the Coors Light apologist, Green Bay Packers diehard fan, self-proclaimed king of comedy, Ron Clark Jr. How are you doing, man?
Oh, doing good, Cody. Good to be here.
Great to be here. So today, you talked to me a couple weeks ago, Ron, and said, you know what? When this 30 for 30 drops of Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa, Long Gone Summer, that's what I want to talk about. I'm going to say my 2 cents on it first, and then, Ron, I'll go to you. I think it was a good documentary, not great. I think we have so many documentaries out there these days, so we're very judgmental of what we want from our documentaries. It wasn't informative, but it took us back. We wanted the nostalgia of the 1998 season when we were 6 years old, right in the mix of things of being baseball players, and we picked a side, McGwire or Sosa. So it brought me back to great memories as a kid. And the only thing I have the problem with on this documentary is I wish they could have got McGwire and Sosa in the same room, and I think people would have respected it more. Ron, how do you feel?
Yeah, no, I'm 100% with you on that. You brought up 2 good points on that. It wasn't as informative. It was as far as the home run rate, but you know, to me, my takeaway was I watched it 2 nights ago, and I just got these goosebumps when I was watching it. It brought me back from the time I was watching it live. It really got me excited to have baseball again, especially in a time right now where we're kind of in a standstill with MLB. But I was getting really excited with that, and it really was. I thought it was a great documentary as far as a feel good story.
And growing up, you were a McGwire fan, right?
Big Mac all day.
Which is crazy because I asked probably 10 people leading up to this documentary, who were you a fan of? And no joke, every single person said Big Mac. And I was a Sosa guy growing up, loved the Cubs because of it. He had so much energy. He was electric, running to right field, sprinting out there every single time. He had the 2 skip home runs. I was shocked. And I know, Kyle, you were a Big Mac guy as well, right?
For everyone that knows me, I collect memorabilia since an early age, and the first piece of memorabilia I had was a Mark McGwire signed baseball my parents gave me when he hit number 62 against the Cubs. Obviously, wow. I was in the other room playing backyard baseball, so I had no idea what was going on, but the nostalgia just of the documentary kind of brought me back, and there's kids 10 years old, that weren't alive during this time. They see Mark McGwire. I don't even know if it's in the record books because of the cheating scandal, but they just see a number and a name. They don't know how hype that was when Sosa and McGwire were going back-to-back home runs.
You make a good point, because I think it is in the record books. There's no asterisk next to it, which that's one thing I kind of got mad about while watching this documentary. You see Ken Griffey Jr. He hit 56 home runs that year. That was the most he ever hit in a season. And by all accounts, he was one of the only dudes during that era that didn't juice. So I took a step back. And I know a lot of Griffey fans. I know, Griffey, you were probably one of the biggest Griffey fans. My brother was. I was, obviously, prettiest swing in baseball. And think about how he would be viewed if he maybe, I don't want to say maybe took the steroids, because I respect him because he didn't, but he hit 56 that year. Griffey's probably viewed in a much different matter if these guys weren't on steroids and he was at 56 coming close to Roger Maris's record, right?
Yeah, I mean, the question is, would they have even been close? How much do the steroids actually affect how far they're hitting it? Obviously, McGwire is like a linebacker. He looks like he definitely benefited, but Sosa is a little bit more lean. He has a big back, so I don't know how much it benefits. It's hard to kind of quantify. The one thing is, was it regulated back then? They weren't testing, so I know they do now, but is it a legit record? Is it in the record books? Who has the home run record?
Yeah, it is. It is. Barry Bonds has the home run record. Obviously, he broke it a couple years later. But Ron, can you point to one moment in that documentary that was your favorite moment? Because there was a few for me. Even if people trash it, there was a couple moments where I was like, damn, that was pretty cool.
I don't know. What I really liked about it is when they got to 60, right, or 60 and then 61 to beat Roger Maris, right. when Big Mac hit that home run to put him over to get the crown. And then what was it? 2 days later, after the Cubs card series, Sosa goes and ties it. I thought, wow, that was just unbelievable to really think of the competition that these guys had throughout the year. And yet Sosa didn't give up at all because, like you said, or like I just said, McGwire just got crowned the championship, or just got crowned the leading home run hitter in all of history. But then 2 days later, Sosa tied it. So that to me was just the competitiveness and the drive and the not willing to give up part of this was what I really enjoyed.
I did think that was pretty awesome because they did have the stat where they pulled up before commercial started how many days did Sosa lead at the end of the day, and it was 0. They tied 12 times at the end of play at the end of the day, but 0 times Sosa led them. But they show that clip during the Cubs after that series when they played each other, and Sosa passes them. All the scoreboards had it back in the day. Sosa has 66, McGwire has 65, and McGwire thought when he broke Maris's record, I could kind of take a seat now, kind of watch, the pressure's off. But Sosa said, no way, man, I'm going. And that was super cool to see two guys at the height of really sports at that time taking over and hitting, let's be honest, mammoth shots. They showed Sosa hitting them out of Wrigley Field. Way cooler when you hit them out of Wrigley Field because they go into the streets and there's hundreds of fans chasing after them.
Yeah, and the thing is, the difference in personalities is one thing I liked. Roger Maris, they had a little clip of him getting interviewed where he was closing in on the record and how much pressure it brings. And Mark McGwire's having this almost anxiety attack with all the press around him. And on the other hand, Sosa's just living and enjoying it. And then when they put them both in the same room, you kind of see Mark McGwire kind of loosened up. So I think if he didn't have Sammy, it could have been a different story.
That's what I'm saying, though. This documentary could have been so cool if 22 years later you had these guys in the same room. Because McGwire says during the documentary, I didn't know who Sammy was until he hit 20 home runs in June, which by itself, think about a guy hitting 20 home runs in June, insane. And to be removed from it, if we didn't, because I think the director of the documentary, wanted to just show us how 1998 was, how naive everyone was. We were following this chase, turning on SportsCenter, and Dan Patrick even said this week, there was a time where you wouldn't even ask, did the Cubs win? You would ask, did Sosa homer? That was the number one question. And for that to be the number one question, that's wild during baseball. And, I mean, we haven't experienced anything like that since. But if the director just put them in the same room, like you said, Mark McGwire loosened up a little bit, I think it would have been cool to see them together and have them talk this through together. I don't think we were expecting to have them talk about steroids. I don't think they ever will. Sammy at the end said, like you said at the beginning, they weren't regulating it back then, so Sosa doesn't feel like he has to apologize, which all power to him. Why should he apologize? He brought all those fans to Wrigley Field when the Cubs were shit in the late 90s and early 2000s, and he doesn't want to apologize. If they're going to bring him back, bring him back. It should be meet in the middle.
Yeah, and what you said at the end there, Cody, if they're going to bring him back, bring him back. I thought that the fact that the Cubs organization has not invited Sammy Sosa back, that part to me kind of hit home. I mean, the things he did for that organization, you can call him a cheater, you can call him whatever you want, but, the things he did for that organization should be recognized. That man should be allowed back into that stadium.
So absurd that they just... Sammy Sosa was like the thing of the of the 90s for the Cubs. Obviously they have a little more history winning a World Series past couple years ago. Recently,
why did you guys go to Mark? I feel like it wasn't you're a Mark guy, you're not a Sammy guy, which most things are these days. Like if you're a LeBron guy, you're not a Jordan guy. But I think back then, if you were a Sosa guy, you still had mutual respect for McGwire. I loved Sosa, but I also loved McGwire. But what made you guys McGwire fans? I'll start with you, Ron.
McGwire he was just a specimen. When you think home run hitter, McGwire was it. Slowey said it earlier. The guy was like a linebacker, but playing baseball, which was not really seen at that time in '98. Still today you don't see players that like that. Yasiel Puig is probably one of the closest things I've seen, but still, Big Mac was a lot bigger than him.
And also, can I ask you guys a question? How big was his uniform?
Pretty big.
Probably triple or quad.
It could be bigger than Triple X. I swear.
He's large.
His quads and his legs coming out of those baseball pants too. I was just like, jeez, dude.
The Cardinals emblem across the uniform looked like lowercase letters on Mark McGwire. It was
Actually, I have a question for both of you. One of the reasons I was a McGwire fan is I think he was marketed a little bit more than Sammy over here. But the Vortex Mark McGwire red bat. You guys?
Still to this day, the best bat for a kid. Still to this day.
Yeah, I wasn't as good as you guys growing up, so I probably had one of the shitty bats. Maybe that's why I was shitty. But
no, it was like the
toy
foam
bag.
one. It was like filled with air, and you hit the ball and it go dong.
Yeah.
I did pick him in backyard baseball. Slowey brought up that recently. I just love the flair from Sosa, and I'm still shocked. I seriously asked 10 people, and no one was on my side of being a Sosa fan. And I was growing up. I would not go to Dodger games unless the Cubs were in town and Sammy Sosa was playing. I remember Sammy Sosa going oppo to right field at Dodger Stadium, getting booed. But also back then, we didn't know they were on steroids, so the away crowds cheered just as loud for home runs when those guys hit it. Like, they went to Dodger Stadium to see Sammy Sosa play.
Yeah, Sammy Sosa. Oh, yeah. I mean, Sammy Sosa, the post-home run trot, like going down the first baseline was pretty memorable. I think a lot of people imitated.
Yeah, it was. And it's funny you said the Dodgers, Cody, because I think it was when Sosa beat or tied McGwire. I think it was against the Dodgers, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, I know McGuire's opening day homer was against Ramon Martinez, Pedro's brother, and that probably went 480 feet. And all these videos are coming out now of the home run derbies that followed the 1998 season. Sammy Sosa hit 6 of his home runs in round 1 at the Brewers ballpark, 480 or farther. Insane. But I'm going to go back to my Griffey point. Imagine Ken Griffey Jr., and I love him because he didn't take steroids. I think he grew up with obviously Ken Sr. playing on the Big Red Machine in the 70s when the Reds were winning things, and he didn't want to cheat the game. But imagine Ken Griffey Jr. on steroids, hit 56 that season. How many homers does Ken Griffey Jr. hit if he's roided up?
65.
Yeah, it's got to be somewhere around there.
65?
No, 65, he said.
Okay.
I think his swing is so natural, and if he would to bulk up, it could affect that. Mark McGwire is more of like a stout power swing, but Griffey had like the natural, and everyone knows that swing. It's like probably the prettiest swing to ever exist in baseball. I think if you put on way too much weight, you're gonna mess up with that.
That swing, yeah.
And I'll say this. Obviously, 1998, McGwire, Sosa have their thing, and it's common knowledge out there today. Dan Patrick brought it up this week that he knows of a source that in Orlando, in the offseason, the next year, Barry Bonds was with a couple of people, and Barry Bonds was disgusted at the fanfare that McGwire and Sosa were getting during the 1998 season, that Barry Bonds said, you know what? Just watch what happens when you get roided up. And Bonds, by all accounts, stole 500 bases before he took steroids, was hitting bombs, and L1, he hit 73. So these guys kind of started the whole thing, and I think that's why a lot of people don't give them the credit. I personally think a lot of people should be in the Hall of Fame before these guys. I know Ron's a big one in saying these guys saved baseball. Yes, they did. A lot of people got brought back because of the home run race, but man, did they start kind of like a trickle-down effect. Everyone started to take after that, because how can you compete with these guys if you're not on the same shit?
Yeah, and I mean, to that point, it started, to what we said earlier, it wasn't regulated, so, of course, if there's no rules, then it's not cheating, right? You're not looking at it as in, hey, I'm cheating. It's just saying, hey, that guy's getting an advantage by taking this. Why am I not?
Yeah.
And everyone thinks, oh, this home run record might not get broken for a while, but if you look at like a Civil War soldier's outfit or like World War II, it's like an extra small. So like people are growing, getting bigger, faster, stronger. And I just think, one day, the home run record's going to be caught.
But I don't even know, because my brother brought that up too. He said, like, who's even got close? Like Roger Maris, even if they did put an asterisk on McGwire, which maybe they should, because it'll make things more interesting, because in 2017, Giancarlo Stanton won the MVP, and Stanton had 58. And that'll bring all the attention to baseball. Imagine that if the record was still 61 and Stanton's racing for it. Because right now it's 73 with Bonds, and I'm not sure who could get it. Bellinger won the MVP last year with 47. Like, at what point? I don't know, man. I don't know, and it's a shame. That's what the big. I've come around on the whole steroid thing. It's the museum is a history of baseball. You have to explain the history of baseball. You can't just exclude 20 years or whatever it was, 15 years of steroids. And it would bring so much if that record was still 61, because obviously people still get kind of close.
Yeah. Well, and the thing about Barry Bonds is it's like almost won every other game. So that's almost
What's crazy though, McGwire holds the record for home runs per at bat. Like, I sent that stat, and I don't know if you guys saw it in the group chat. Ryan Spader on Twitter always throws out the best stats. I think Barry Bonds could go 216 for 216 homers, and he would still be behind Mark McGwire for homers per at bat, which that doesn't even make sense, and I probably am getting it wrong, but I'll post it on my 10After7 Instagram after this, because it's an insane stat, and I'm pretty sure it's true. McGwire homered every 1 point something at bat.
Insane.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, I was just looking right now after the juicing era. I think Carlos Stanton 59 home runs.
Wait,
was what he hit.
Wait, you just said Carlos G. I don't even know if you even botched that name so bad.
Like, Pete Alonso hit 53 last year. He kind of has the same build as Mark McGwire as a rookie, so.
Yeah, that's true. So I'll ask you guys. You guys are baseball fans, but I think you guys are more purist with me than Eric Morales and Devin Roll and those guys who watched this thing and said, oh, it was so trash. That's because you guys didn't grow up baseball fans, and we did. So would you guys be for steroids? Because I would not be. Personally, I think it did do so much damage to the game, and I like it pure. They're probably still on stuff, but they're not on that stuff.
Here's what I would say. I would say I'm not for steroids in the current era, but I don't think you can point the finger at the people back in the 90s, early 2000s and say, shame on you, baseball needs to disown you, because like we said before, it wasn't regulated. So you can't drop the hammer on people when there's no rule in place.
Yeah, and a good point that you bring up. Bud Selig, the commissioner during that time, just got inducted to the Hall of Fame last year. So why is Bud Selig in the Hall of Fame, who obviously turned a blind eye to all this? And Barry Bonds and Clemens right now are going on their last year to get inducted, and that guy's in and those guys aren't. Like, come on, really? And first, my stance was always they shouldn't get honored with the highest honor in all of baseball and have that speech on Hall of Fame weekend. But I love speeches, and to hear Barry Bonds have his 30 minutes up there and Roger Clemens have their 30 minutes up there, if they even bring it up or not, that would be something to see.
Yeah, and Barry Bonds is an asshole, but compared to, like, Sammy and McGwire, everyone nowadays looks at these guys like they're criminals for taking steroids, and they're actually decent. Just by watching the doc, they're like decent, good-hearted people. So it kind of makes them out as these villains when in reality, they're pretty good people.
And McGwire has taken the other side on it. Like, McGwire straight up in the documentary said, yeah, I regret it, wish I never did it, which is why he's back in baseball. Sammy, on the other hand, you can't fault him. I already said it. It wasn't regulated. Why should I apologize to the Chicago Cubs? Let's meet in the middle. Bring me back. Why are you going to put all the blame on me? No finger pointing. I agree with both of you guys. There needs to be a middle ground here, and yes, finger pointing should not be directed at two guys single-handedly.
Yep, 100%.
All right, so
I got one thing, Cody, and to bring us into our next topic here. There was one quote in that documentary that I think that fits perfectly into this time with MLB trying to figure out, are they going to play the season, the back and forth players and the owners. There was a quote in the beginning that says, "It was America's game, but now it's a bank's game." And I thought that quote was so good to today, looking at what's going on. That's what struck me.
Okay, let's get into the baseball talk right now. So the latest, Rob Manfred met with Tony Clark yesterday, and by all the reports out there, it was a good conversation. They're moving in the right direction. So the owners sent the proposal, 60 games, full prorated. And there was reports out there that said, hey, they're close to getting a deal done. It turns out they're not. I think the players want more games. What are your guys' thoughts on that? It's been ugly. It's been ugly. It shouldn't be in the public, but it is.
I'll jump in on that, what I think is wrong. The players want more games. I don't know exactly the details, but something about 60 games is $1.5 billion that's collectively throughout to distribute. I think if you go over 60 games in the contract, if the dollar threshold is over 1.5, there's a whole nother aspect of the contract that needs to be honored by the owners and on the owners. So I think that's why they're trying to make it a 60-game season, is because they don't want to pay out more.
And 60 games is where, like we already heard, Manfred could put in a 50-game season, and that's why the players were tweeting out, when and where, tell us, we're ready. And the owners just won't come off that 1.5 that you mentioned. The last proposal they sent was the same exact collective earnings for these players, 1.5. And you've kind of, me and you have had discussions in the DMs. You've been sliding in mine, and I'm like, Ron, hey, easy on the DMs. You're saying, hey, the players need to come together and play, man. Baseball needs to be on TV. The fans need these guys. And I will never agree with the owners. And I think you're starting to come around. I think you are.
I am starting to come around. I just think that in this time with so many people on unemployment, losing their jobs, I think people need an escape. They need something to watch. They need something to take their mind off. Hey, what's tomorrow going to bring, right? And so these players are making millions of dollars. I think I sent you the minimum payment for MLB player is like what was it? I think it was like $150,000 or something like that.
Yeah.
So maybe a little more. But if you do the price reduction, they'll still be making six figures just at $100K.
Yeah, but that's when we're talking about the millions and $100K. But Forbes came out with the 2020 listings of all the MLB teams, and the only team making under $1 billion is the Florida Marlins. And I told you this recently, that the owners can make this money back. They bought into these teams because, listen, they have all the money in the world. If we had all the money in the world, what would we do? We would say, yes, let's buy a sports team. Let's absolutely buy a franchise.
That'd be sick.
Yeah, it would be the number one thing on our list. And they could get it back. And Carabas from Barstool, Starting Nine podcast, baseball podcast on their platform, phenomenal. He said, why don't you guys just defer the money? If you don't have the money to pay us now, pay us down the road. Just agree to that. Slowey, what's your take on the whole thing?
I agree. I wish they would live broadcast these negotiations so we can see what each side's arguing, because as common folk, we can't
Well, shit, it's already out in the public.
I want to hear the behind the scenes, what this 1.5 is, why is the owners being so all that stuff. But what you're talking about is that for the MLB team valuations from a decade ago, every team has doubled in value, most tripled.
Yeah.
Yankees went from 1.8 billion to 4.6, so that's triple. They're making a lot of money just by investing early and over time, the value appreciating. So once you said that, I kind of looked it up, and I'm like, damn, maybe these owners really do.
And think about how much money they've already cut. There's 40 minor league teams that are out of business. Like minor leagues, during this entire pandemic, the minor leagues are getting crushed. And that's a staple for baseball. So many teams are out of business. They won't even exist anymore. And then the MLB draft happens, and they cut it down from 40 rounds to 5 rounds. And then cut it out to, if you're an undrafted guy from the draft, you could cap it out at $20,000. So they're already cutting money. But the guys that are doing the job on the field, they're trying to even take more money back. And that's what I don't get. But I'll say one thing. This is where I've come around. I listened to that Starting Nine podcast last night, and they had Cole Tucker on from the Pittsburgh Pirates and Scott Kingery from the Philadelphia Phillies. And I said this on last week's podcast with Kyle. I said 50 games would be a fucking joke. But Kingery said 50 games, we'll play it. Like, if that's what it takes, if Rob Manfred puts it down, says 50 games, we're playing, tell us where. Scott Kingery made a good point. He said the dugouts will be more lively. Like, every game matters. We'll be jumping out of the dugouts every single home run. Every game matters. Every team has a chance. And think about college baseball. I watch college baseball all the time. I'm probably one of the few. It's a different game because they have a shorter season, and every game counts. So when a guy hits a leadoff double in the first inning, and the number 2 hitter maybe flies out, you know what the number 3 hitter in their lineup's doing? He's laying down a sacrifice bunt. He's bringing back small ball because that runs are coming at a minimum. And you have to get that run in from second base. So I think it changes the whole game. And after Scott Kingery saying that, I'm all for the 4 games. Will it be a legit season? No. Will it be exciting? Hell fucking yes. Okay, so get us baseball. Because I was on the other side saying, if we play 50, don't even play it. But I'm on the other side now. Hearing the players say it, I'm in.
I couldn't agree more, dude. I want baseball back. Especially the last 3 seasons, being a Dodger fan, it's been disappointing, but it's been the most exciting, 3 years of my life as a Dodger fan, right? It's been nothing. We haven't got that close since '88, pretty much in my lifetime at least. And just seeing those 3 seasons, it's just the excitement that I got. At one point last year, I found myself thinking, man, do I like the Dodgers more than I like the Packers? Because I was so invested in the playoff baseball and the World Series last year for the last 2 years, that thought came across.
Think about how many beers on our Snapchat group chat we were chugging every inning to get a rally chug in. You can't take those back. You cannot take those back.
I do love the fact that every game's going to matter. That's kind of like growing up, we only had 11, 12 games, so every game mattered, the way you play the game and the passion, everyone's up on the bench. When you have 162, it's like no one can really calculate what this one game's going to matter down the road. But
it's a marathon. It's like what pretty much McGuire said it in the documentary, right? It's easy to get through the first half. It's the last half of the season that's the real struggle.
I'd watch more games if it was a 60-game season.
Yeah,
because you'd be like, oh, we need this game for playoffs. It's only like 20 games in.
Yeah, it would be cool. We need it, especially with the NBA. NFL is going to be around. It would be awesome. It would probably be, think about it. I mean, we would be telling our kids about it one day what was like the most iconic season. It's like the Lakers were going for a championship in the same month that the Dodgers were going for a championship.
That the NFL is playing. Like, that's the thing about this whole thing, too, is we can have 3 major sports in America playing at the same time.
All important games.
All important games. It's the craziest thing. I was going to say that. Like, this could be, given everything that's happened this year, this could be one of the most exciting sports seasons.
Ooh, so let me lay it out for you. So the NBA is supposed to end October 12th. Lakers are in the conference finals probably in September. The Packers got a Sunday night game against the Vikings. Big game. I know it's early in the season, but big game. But the Dodgers also are 2 games out of a playoff spot. All games on primetime. Which one are you watching? Packers, Dodgers, Lakers.
I'm pulling my 3 TVs into my living room,
Woo!
hooking up my YouTube TV to all of them, and having all 3 at once.
We have to get it. We have to have it. I'm completely on the side of you guys now.
Yeah, it's. I think it's going to be very exciting.
I'm going to have 4 monitors. Yeah,
maybe 5. You got to.
Yeah, I've already kind of been on that vibe, just with the gambling route. But
oh my God, can you imagine the gambling scenarios of those games?
It's going to be all the revenue that they lost with this 3 months, 3 and change, whatever it is going to be made up. Just watch.
Here's something funny. Actually, Broncos did a partnership with FanDuel, so they're going to start getting some revenue.
I saw that.
Why don't the Dodgers do that?
I was just about to say that. If the owners want to get that money back, it's not legalized in California. I think it's state. Yeah, you have to wait for your state. But that would be insane if the owners were just like, okay, let's do it. You guys bet on these games, and we get whatever the percentage is of the money. Let's go. That would make back a ton. We all know how degenerate our friends are. Sean O'Neill right now is probably betting on Korea baseball.
Go Dragons.
Oh, man. Yeah, the Doosan Bears. Yeah, I love that. I'm going to be parlaying the Lakers, Dodgers, Broncos all in one game. All one day.
All on the same day. Think of the excitement. The excitement and the happiness that's going to come back into Americans.
Oh, man. Yeah, bars are going to be outrageous.
Yeah, if they ever open. But anyways, we're going to talk about the NBA. The bubble is very interesting. I was all for the NBA coming back. I still am all for the NBA coming back. But I'm kind of thinking the players aren't going to be about this bubble. They broke down everything that was going to happen. Shams came out with it. Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN came without all the details. They're going to stay at 3 different hotels, whatever seed you are. And by the way, a lot of people are shitting on the yacht hotel that the teams that are battling for the 8th seed are going to be staying at. It's probably a great hotel. I don't know why anyone's shitting on the yacht hotel. I looked it up.
Cody, as a Disney fan, and I'm going to Disney World in November. I've done a lot of research on the hotels. That's one of the premium hotels.
Yeah. So I don't know why. I think they're just shitting on them because they're the teams that are probably not going to be there long. But the situation is they're going to have DJs playing, movies playing. They're going to have game rooms where you could play 2K. My initial thoughts were, yeah, that'd be awesome for us who like to play video games and we're now in our late 20s. I was thinking when I'm like 12 years old, there's nothing better than a game room when you go on vacation. But I don't think they're going to be about this. There's already, I read last night, I went in a deep dive. I guess PJ Tucker for the Houston Rockets got his DMs on blast with a side chick he was trying to invite to these things. And that's the NBA issue. They want their side chicks to be able to come to these things. And I don't think it's going to happen. And the NBA even put a hotline out there that you could rat on any player that you see breaking any of the rules.
Actually, after a certain date, they're going to allow like 14 to 20 guests per team.
Yeah.
It's going to be an interesting list to look at. See, can you imagine, JR, like JR Smith signed with the team and he was bringing his girls in?
It's going to be very interesting, but to that point, Slowey, so here's a little bit of the schedule. So August 15th is going to be the tournament. August 17th, playoffs begin. And then the 30th is when family and guests arrive. So that's what you're talking about. On August 30th, that's when they have their limited select guests that are allowed to arrive.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, decisions. Do you bring your wife or do you bring your side chick?
Well, here's the thing. When I first heard this, I thought it was epic because growing up, the greatest thing when you were aged 10 to 15 was going on tournaments and staying at hotels and getting with your boys and just like fucking around. So I feel like we would love this, The only downside is you can't interact with other people in different hotels, but it sounded like heaven.
I'm 100% with you, Slowey. I was doing a deep dive today, and I was like, dude, this is Minnesota all over. And these are all those tournaments we went to that we literally still talk about today.
Yeah, Minnesota trip.
And Cody, to your point, with them being, kind of, I want to invite my side chick or whatever, this is where a little bit of professionalism comes into play, where I think that they need to put aside that for, 2 to 3 months?
Three and a half. If you go the distance, 3.5 months is a long time. They think Island Fever might be involved. They are actually going to bring therapists to this.
They have a mental health therapist. Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, which is, I would think some of these guys need it. I do think, to your guys' point, how cool was it at these tournaments when you were growing up? You finish your game and you stay for the next one. So they can stay. Cool. They can stay in the stands to watch these games be played, and it would be cool to see these NBA players' reactions to maybe a LeBron dunk. And think about Kawhi and the Clippers, like their reactions during an entire Laker game. Like who are they rooting for in the stands?
That's a good point that you bring up, Cody. But I'm thinking the opposite a little bit differently. Is they're going to be there scouting in person.
That's
so
true.
The strategic aspect of this tournament is going to be so much different than watching film. It's going to be real time. I think it's going to add a whole different competitive angle.
Great point.
If I had the 9 a.m. game down at Redondo Sunset, I was there till 5 p.m. Hanging out, dicking around, watching every game. Snack bars just loading up. Here's the thing: I heard they have like private chefs and just a food arena open for each team.
Yeah, but it's
this is not going to be no snack bar.
No, you think it's Disney chefs, dude? Like, how many corn dogs is fucking J.R. Smith going to be putting down if he signs that?
Dwight's going to put on the pounds again.
Yeah.
Man,
it's going to be bad. I think it is such an interesting dynamic. But the one point I had music on a couple weeks ago, and he brought this up, and I said, "There's no way they would create this bubble." And then during the conference finals decide, hey, we're going to go back to our own home arenas because the NFL is playing their games at their home arenas. I don't think so. I think if they're going to go full on with this bubble, they're going to finish out this bubble.
That's a good point. I don't know how it's going to play out. If maybe, I mean, there's still some things that can be changed. It clearly states that all over the internet. So maybe that's going to be in there, or maybe not. I don't know.
It's going to be epic regardless. I know we wanted to talk about which teams have an advantage. I think they're all on level playing field. They don't know who's been working out on their team. I know some teams open up their facilities. They're starting to work out. But I think it's really going to decide when you get in there and the games start to play how you're going to handle these guys playing. Because some guys are, let's be honest, some guys haven't been acting like professionals and probably aren't in the best shape when the season starts.
Yeah, that's one thing I was reading up on too, Cody. It looks like everybody's reporting early June. So this month, I think they're reporting. And then the games, or maybe it's July 1st. They have about a month to practice. There's individual practices that are allowed for like 2 weeks. And then they travel to Orlando. And then they can do team practices for 2 weeks. And then they have I forget how many scrimmages. They get a certain amount of scrimmages, and then they go into gameplay. So they have a month buffer for these guys to get into basketball shape, because it's one thing to be in shape, it's another thing to be in basketball shape. But I thought that was interesting.
That's plenty of time. And look at Nikola Jokic. That guy looked like he lost 60 pounds. He slimmed up and looking like a model.
Insane. So, I think another thing we should probably touch on, this past weekend, Kyrie Irving came out. He had a call with 80 NBA players, and he thought maybe we shouldn't come back with the whole movement going on, the protests. And I do want to say, Kyrie's heart's probably in the right place, and him delivering the message probably got misconstrued because it is Kyrie Irving. He did say the earth was flat a couple of years ago, and he got shitted on this past weekend for saying that. And he's the VP of the Players Association. I don't know how far that'll go. I know 2 Lakers were on that call. LeBron James was not on the call. And Patrick Beverley tweeted out saying, if LeBron wants to ball, we're going to ball. But I do want to give credit to Kyrie Irving, because in this day and age, anything can happen. I think, if you're a voice in the NBA, you should be heard. And I think it's correct that he made that statement, because a lot of 80 players on that phone call joined and said, yeah, we don't know, but how are we going to keep this movement going when the season starts? So I think that was good to have.
Yeah, I'm going to step in here. There's one thing that when I heard that, I think set aside the whole how Adam Silver handled the China issue. I think that was mishandled. But up until that point, Adam Silver has done everything in his will to show the support of not only the NBA players, but as an African American. You can see they let the players wear the I Can't Breathe shirts.
Yeah.
They let the players express however they wanted to. So to protest basketball, I don't think is a good thing, because I think Silver's going to let them use this as a platform to get out whatever message they want. So I don't think that that's a good position. Do you kind of get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and like I said, it was Kyrie saying it, so he got trashed. But Avery Bradley was on the call. I thought he made a good point, and he said, "Listen, like if we're gonna sit out, and we love to play basketball, we love to be out there, but this game has only gone so far to where it is now because of the African American player." And that's why we would be sitting out, because, listen, you guys don't have a game without us. And I thought Avery saying that cleared up the message a little bit and made it a little bit clearer for a lot of people, because this past weekend, Kyrie did take a lot of slack. But I think Avery coming out and saying that was smart. I do agree with you, though. They could do a lot with this platform, especially it's in a bubble. There's going to be media there, and I don't know how they're going to use that media. But I think it's up to them how they use that media. Maybe every day in the hotel lobby, they could come down and have a conversation with Adrian Wojnarowski and spread that message, continue to spread that message. It's literally their own bubble to do whatever the heck they want, and Adam Silver is going to let them do it. He's the best commissioner we have.
Yeah, and one other thing to add, all eyes are going to be on the NBA.
Yeah.
That's just it. Everybody's going to be watching, so you want to get your message out, this is the opportunity.
Exactly. Slow, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the ESPN has nothing else. SportsCenter has nothing else to talk about or air. You know, there's going to be so much downtime in between games. Cameras are going to be all on them. Why not use that platform to affect change? I totally agree with the points you guys are saying. But obviously for Kyrie to come out and say it because he can't play in the tournament kind of seemed like there was like another reason. And his team, the Nets, if they had him and KD, they'd be probably better, 100%. It probably kind of eats at him that he's not able to play with his teammates.
Yeah. So I want to end this podcast the right way. All right, boys? 10 years to the day. June 17th, 2010. Kobe Bryant wins his 5th NBA championship, defeating the Boston Celtics. I want your guys' greatest Kobe Laker moment from 2010 or the year before.
That's extremely hard to do. You can't pinpoint it all.
I sprung it on you guys, but that's literally, think about it. I always tell people this. We grew up with the best sports time in our lives because we grew up in high school with the Lakers. This was our senior year of high school when Kobe got his 5th title. And his 4th title was the year before. Prime years of being a sports fan. We would go to your house, Ron. We would go to Slowey's house, Serta's house. We were always somewhere where we could pinpoint, that's where I was when Kobe made the shot. That's where I was when Meta World Peace got the ball and made that shot. And that's why I love it so much. These guys had such an impact on our lives. Think about it. Think about if we were Devin Raw and we're a Kings fan. Didn't have these moments. Think about it.
Yeah, I think all of us at Trevor Neer's house, the last game, 2010, everybody grabbed one of those bongos and we're all just going nuts on it.
Yeah.
And then when Meta got the ball, everyone screams, "No! Yes!"
Unreal, dude. That was literally the moment every single person had as a Laker fan.
Yeah, 100%.
And listen, man, our parents had it with the Celtics-Lakers rivalry back in the day, but it to go to another generation decades later was phenomenal. I mean, we probably liked Kevin Garnett when he was on the Timberwolves, but man, did I hate that dude when he was going head-to-head with Pau Gasol. And I still think to this day Pau Gasol is underrated, doesn't get as much credit as he deserves, but he showed up like a man in that series because he saw it in 08. He got overpowered by those dudes. And in 2010, I think that might have been the year that Kobe brought up the white swan comment to Pal, and Pal turned into a freaking beast.
He answered the call.
And the thing with Kobe, my best memory is in law school, I wasn't doing that well, but then near the end of the year, we had this competition and I won it, and the prize was a Kobe Bryant poster. It was the night of his last game, and then he goes on to score 60 points. And I have like a picture with all of it. So just for him to like go out, it was on his retirement tour. No one really thought much of what he was going to do his last game at Staples Center, and he balled out. just like good old Kobe.
If you do anything, if you grow up and do anything in LA, I think Bill Plaschke wrote the article. I saved the quote from the article. I can pull it up. It just looks weird on YouTube, but it's one of the best quotes I've ever seen because we all took that death so hard. Probably you guys can agree, the hardest death you've ever took by an athlete, right?
Yeah, no doubt.
And damn it, if I could just pull this up in a timely manner. And here it is. Bill Plaschke. On your best days, the days you landed a big account or aced a big test or just survived a battle with traffic, you felt like Kobe. You were Kobe. And in the end, as he retired into a life of movies and books and coaching Gianna's basketball team, he was us.
Exactly how I felt in my story.
Yeah.
Incredible. So, that's how we can end. But also, we have a fantasy league, and I want you guys to each call out one of these MFers in our leagues because a lot of trash is being talked. So please do call out whoever you want to call out. Maybe they'll come on the podcast to dispute it.
Ron or me first?
Whoever's filling up to it.
I'll call out the legend of our league, the guy who won 3 rings in Dynasty before anyone else, Eric Morales, who's gone cold since all his keepers have started breaking down.
He's gonna take that hard, but I love that call.
He's gonna be 60 years old, saying still won back to back.
Still won back to back.
Yeah, we have that meme in our account, so it's there. Ron,
I'm gonna call out Luke Trudnowski. The kid needs to get on the pod here. He's too busy crunching numbers. I feel like it'd be good for him to talk sports.
And he puts in all this statistical and accounting analysis into his players and his budget, and it never pans out.
yeah, if that guy comes to the draft with one more cheat sheet and doesn't win a title, he's out of the league. I'm gonna call out Mr. Irrelevant, Sean O'Neal.
Who smell?
Yeah, he may or may not show up to the draft. I don't know at this point, but I mean, put your phone down, stop betting on Korean baseball, and stop drafting Ravens players because you think they're going to be good. Do a deep dive on who's good in college football coming up. Get a couple of cheap keepers instead of spending $100 on Saquon and being burned years down the road. Come on, O'Neal. Do something.
He was so close last year, too. He had a good team.
Yeah, I think he pulled the Ron Clark. If people don't know, Ron Clark went to both. We're in 2 leagues, and it's the Ron Clark special. When you lose both championships in the same day, and his butt buddy, Sean O'Neal, in his honor, did it last year. Incredible.
I taught him well.
You did teach him well. I want to thank you guys for coming on. Great podcast. You guys got to come on again. That was awesome.
Of course, Tim. Anytime.
Big.
All right. See you guys soon, buddy.
Later.
And there you have it, a podcast with Ron Clark Jr. and Kyle Slowey. Great guys, 2 legends. 2 of my good friends. You guys can listen anytime on iTunes, Spotify, wherever it is you listen to podcasts. You can follow me on Twitter at 10After7 or on the Instagram at 10_after_7. Hope you enjoyed it. I'm out. Woo! Go Dodgers.